Yo, what's going on YouTube and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. We are taking a look today at David Quinn being let go by the New York Rangers. He is fired as head coach of the New York Rangers. We'll be taking a look at that in this video, so let's get right into it. So the New York Rangers have fired head coach David Quinn after spending 3 seasons with the Rangers. He has been let go. Now, the Rangers have obviously had a lot of change over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, since the whole Tom Wilson dilemma, the Rangers have had some issues. And even before that game against the Washington Capitals, the boiling water was definitely that you could hear the boiling water. You saw that series against the New York Islanders. They played those 2 games at the Garden, and they got their butts kicked at the Garden. They got swept in that 2-game series, and not to mention held scoreless in those 2 games as well. And the Islanders just had their number, just had their necks right around the Rangers' throats. And I kind of had the same thing against the Capitals. They were already frustrated after games against the Islanders where they felt they should have maybe played better, kind of should have showed more desperation in those games, and they just didn't have it. And when you look at the New York Rangers as a whole, they have some issues with their team. And one of those things was their coaching staff. And I truly believe that. Going into this season, if you look back in my power rankings, my first week power rankings, preseason power rankings, I mentioned the Rangers as a team that was going to miss the postseason. And the reason I said that was, yes, they have some skill. They have guys like Alexi Lafreniere, Capo Caco, Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin. But, there's always a big but. I didn't like David Quinn as their coach. David Quinn has been a good coach for the Rangers the past 3 years. I will give him that. He's a bridge to a team that's going from a rebuild to a cup contender. But he's not the cup contender coach. And I'll explain that here. So, he's a coach that develops guys. We saw what he did with Adam Fox this season. He brought back Vitaly Kravtsov, who had a pretty good end to the season. We've seen what he's done with Igor Shesterkin and Alex Georgiev, but he is not the guy that's going to light a fire under his players' ass and hold them accountable and kind of the structure that's needed. He's very free and loose with his players, which is a good thing. He's a player's coach, but when it comes to the postseason and getting your team to that said postseason, this is what we saw from the New York Islanders with a coach like Doug Weight. Was a very player's coach, a very player-friendly guy, but he couldn't get the success out of that team to get them to the postseason. Couldn't get them to win the big games. And that's kind of what we saw from David Quinn in his tenure with the Rangers. We saw what happened last year in the playoff bubble with the Carolina Hurricanes. They got embarrassed, lost 3 straight games, and they were out. That was the end of the career of Henrik Lundqvist with the Rangers. That's how important it was. So you kind of see that there has been a theme, and a lot of Ranger fans have told me, at the very least, that they have not been able to win the big games. And they haven't been able to do that under David Quinn. Now, I'm not saying they go out and get a guy like John Tortorella. I think that ship has sailed. But you look at that is the kind of guy that they kind of need. A guy with a little bit of structure and holds them accountable. And I think there were too many times this season where I hate to call out a guy like Mika Zibanejad, but there were times where he was not held accountable for some mistakes he made. Capo Caco, another great example. You know, even Alexi Lafreniere to an extent. And I know he's a young kid, he's a rookie, played his first season in the league, but there were times where I think David Quinn was too loose with a guy like Alexi Lafreniere, and it kind of hurt his development this season. So looking at the first season with the Rangers, he was, with the Rangers, 7th in the Metropolitan, which obviously is not that good. Finished with a 32-win season, 32, 36, and 14, which just not going to cut it. They missed the playoffs that season. Now, last season, they made it to the playoff bubble, but they didn't make the postseason. They lost in that qualification round to the Carolina Hurricanes in 3 games, which is 3 wins for the Hurricanes and a big fat 0 for the Rangers. But they improved. They got 37 wins that season, right? So there's improvement, right? But then this season, they fell back a little bit. 27, 23, and 6, which is below 500 at that point. 27 and 29 if you add it together. In a 56-game schedule, the Rangers were going to miss the playoffs with that record. Now, a lot of Ranger fans will say, oh, well, if we were in the North Division, or if we were in the Central Division, or if we were in the West Division, we would have made the postseason. Yeah, but again, you have to realize it's different. You can't go off of that because you didn't play those teams in that division. Maybe if you played teams from outside divisions, you could argue that, but that wasn't the case. And I will admit, I believe the East Division, the Beast Division, is the best division in the league. And the Rangers are one of the, if not the only team that missed the postseason with a plus goal differential this season. So that's kind of how it works. You know, when you play in that division, I mean, let's be realistic. If the Rangers were going to miss the postseason, what teams would you have wanted to see ahead of the Rangers, right? Likely the Islanders, the Capitals, the Bruins, and the Penguins. And that's kind of what happened. And maybe you could argue the Rangers would hope going into this season the Penguins would fall off or the Capitals. And we have seen that has not been the case. They are the top two teams in that East Division. So, yeah, it's a tough spot for the Rangers. They missed the postseason, 5th in the East Division, which there's only 7 teams in that division. So, you know, Buffalo and New Jersey. That's the thing. They were able to play better than Buffalo and New Jersey for the most part. They were better than those teams. But the matchups against the Islanders and the Bruins this season was really, I believe, the difference between them making the postseason and not making the postseason. We knew Washington and Pittsburgh were the better teams this year. But if they were able to beat the Islanders, maybe those 2 games, right, when they were only 5 points back of the Islanders, they win those 2 games, they're only 1 point back of the Islanders. And there's a totally different scenario now going into those matchups against Washington in that Tom Wilson game and these games against the Boston Bruins down the stretch. The New York Rangers may have been in the postseason this year, but things didn't work out that way. They weren't able to get things done when they needed to. When their back was against the wall, the Rangers did not execute. And that's why David Quinn lost his job. And I think there was a little bit more to the story, obviously, with this whole thing with Jeff Gorton and John Davidson. I think those were irrational moves by the New York Rangers, if I'm going to be honest. I think if Chris Drury wasn't in the front office, let's be honest, would the Rangers have made that move? I want to hear from Ranger fans. Would they have been so quick to move out John Davidson and Jeff Gorton if Chris Drury, who was a very sought-after assistant general manager, wasn't sitting in the wings? Would the Rangers have been quick to make that move? Because again, this reminds me a lot of the Buffalo Sabres, where 3 years in, you miss the playoffs, see you later. That is my one concern here. But if the Rangers bring in, say, a Gerard Gallant, which is the big name I've been hearing a lot from Ranger fans, if they bring in a guy like Gerard Gallant, maybe that changes the narrative. Or do they bring in a guy like Rick Tocchet, a former New York Ranger in the 90s, just got let go by the Arizona Coyotes? Or dare I even say it, do the Rangers even explore a guy like John Tortorella or Mike Babcock? Because those are culture-changing guys. And I know a lot of Ranger fans, I don't like Mike Babcock. He makes guys cry. I don't like John Tortorella because he makes guys cry. But at the end of the day, they win. And are the Rangers looking to win, or are they looking to do what they've done with David Quinn, which is a player's coach, but just not able to get them there? I think Gerard Gallant is the perfect mix of both, and I think he would fit in well with the New York Rangers. My bet is Gerard Gallant or Rick Tocchet. But don't be surprised if Gerard Gallant is the next head coach of the New York Rangers. And maybe Rick Tocchet comes in as an assistant. Who knows, right? But guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. A, what do you think of the Rangers with their situation? Do you like Chris Drury as the general manager? Do you like him over losing Jeff Gorton and John Davidson? And my second thing, do you think the Rangers should have given Jeff Gorton more time? And if not, who do you think should be the next head coach of the New York Rangers? Let me know down below. And if you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.